Hi, and welcome back to Send Happy with Allie, a place to have fun, create cards, and send them. My name is Allie, and I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And if you've seen my videos in the past, you know that my main goal for creating these projects and sharing them with you is so we all send some happy into the world. Did you send any cards since my last video? If so, please leave a comment and tell me who you sent a card to, or who you sent happy or support or gratitude to. I would love to know. I'd love to hear from you. I sent congrats in a card to my son's teacher who just had a baby. So please leave me a comment. Tell me who you sent some happy to. Today, this is the card that we're creating. It's a Gatefold card using the Brewed for You bundle, which includes the Brewed for You stamp set and the Brewed dies. I'm also going to teach you a fun technique of stamping with embossing folders. Let's get started on the project. First, we're going to stamp the images. I've got a couple of pieces of scrap paper in Very Vanilla. My first scrap is a 2x8 and the other one is 2x3. I'm going to use the longer one for the beer images, and I'm going to use the smaller one for our sentiment. I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black for the beer images, and that's because we're going to color them in with Stampin' Blends. These are an alcohol-based marker, and so that's why I'm using Memento, because this is a water-based stamp pad. Okay, let's get started. I should have mentioned this. Sorry, I'm using block H just to give you an idea of putting two stamps on one side. So you're just doing it once, twice, and then you're moving on. Just trying to simplify the process. Leaving a little room at the top for when we cut it out. Okay, then I'm just flipping it over. I'm going to do the growler. Doesn't matter doesn't matter for the most part. Again, like I said, leave some space because you're going to cut it out. But if it's crooked, doesn't matter because we're cutting it out. That's why I'm okay to be doubling up on each side of the block, because I'm not being precise, or I don't need to be precise. Okay, I'm going to put this aside. I want that to dry so that we can use the blends in a little bit. And then I'm going to quickly do the sentiment. I'm using Cajun Craze. There are a couple of sentiments in the Brewed for You stamps. I owe you one. I actually use that for a thank you card, and then another round for your birthday. That's the one I'm doing today. Again, we're going to cut this out. So I'm okay if it's a little crooked. I do want it as in the middle as possible, but it can be crooked because we're going to cut it out. Looks good. Okay, putting that aside too. Now we're going to move on to cutting and scoring our paper. Okay, I have a 8.5 by 11 piece of Cajun Craze cardstock. I'm going to cut it at 5.5 and 8.5, which is basically cutting it in half. Damn what people say. So 5.5. And that's where I'm cutting it. The darker, if you're using the paper trimmer, the Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, the darker tool is the one that cuts. Okay, so I'm gonna put this aside. Okay, now I'm gonna score this at 2 1/8 on both sides. 2 1/8. Okay, the scoring tool on this is the lighter slide. Okay, so that's scored. Now I'm just gonna turn it over And I'm going to do 2 1/8 here as well. Not 2 1/4, 2 1/8. Again, using the lighter tool. Okay, now I'm going to take our bone folder. You can use other things too, like your hands, or you can use a block. But I'm just getting out my bone folder. And I'm gonna fold that one side of the gate, fold this one, the other side, and we have a gatefold. Okay. So when I created this card, I wanted it to feel like you were opening the doors to a brewery. So the background is actually a brick wall, and well, looks like a brick wall, and we're going to create that now. So I have 2 pieces of gray granite cardstock cut at 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. I'm using the brick and mortar 3D embossing folder, and I'm going to stamp it with gray granite. I'm going to lay these 2 pieces in there, run it through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and get that look. Let's do it. All right, gray granite. Okay, so I'm going to just stamp right on the embossing folder. So this is going to create, I mean, the embossing folder itself creates a 3D look, but this is going to add a visual effect, more of a visual effect. Give it a lot of texture. Then I'm going to lay these down like this. I had them right next to each other. You can do it however you would like. Close that up. And I'm going to get out the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, it comes with all the plates that you need. I am using plate number 1, and this is all written out here. So I'm using a 3D embossing folder, so I'm using plate 4 and 1. This is 1, and this is 4. Putting that in there, like this, and running it through. And there's your wall. Okay, now we're going to create even more texture. I wanted it to be a little bit more like a brick color. So I went with Cajun Craze. And what I did was I took a sponge. You can get any sponge. And I just took the sponge and put it on the stamp pad. And then I dabbed it on the brick wall. You will get your fingers a little inked up with this project. So that to me, and I'm just dabbing, circling, dabbing. There's a lot of different tools you could use to do this besides a sponge, but that's what I decided to do. So I'm going to do the other one. Okay. There you go. Now I'm going to set this aside. We're actually finished with the Cajun Craze. Finished with the sponge. I'm going to set this aside, move my doors over, and we're going to bring back the images that we stamped. And we are going to color them. Some people like to color the images before you cut them out, and some people like to do it after. I like to do it before, so do whatever feels right for you. I started by the images that are actually a part of the stamp set, and this is to create the beer liquid. It's a stamp. So I started out with that using, pumpkin pie, and I'm going to just stamp that right in there. And then stamp in the Pilsner. And the reason why I did this, because after this, we're going to go over it with Stampin' Blends. But the reason why I did this was because I like these white lines that are in here, that are in the, I don't know if you can see that. But I like that. And when you go over it with the blender pen, they kind of stay. It's not as predominant, but they will stay there once you go over the blends with them. So we're going to do that now. So pumpkin pie with both of those. I know in my example, they're actually the same color, but what I'm going to do with you, I want them to be different. I went over these colors a lot with my husband to make sure that these were genuine beer colors. So we're going to do things a little bit different. I want these to have two different colors. So for the tulip glass, we are going to take, again, Stampin' Blends. We're going to take the light pumpkin pie, and you're just going to color it in. You can go in a circle. What I love about the blend pens is that Stampin' Blends is that you really don't see any lines like you do with regular markers. They just blend right in. Okay, so then for this glass, I did not dark Cajun craze, but I did light Cajun craze. And the same thing, I'm using this, there's two different sides of more fine tip and more of like a paintbrush. So I did the paintbrush. Although I demoed this card this weekend, and my friend, she liked the fine tip better. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just coloring it in. Okay, now for the growler, I did the dark Cajun craze. Now, if you want to create some shadows or have it create some color with some depth, you could go over this, in some areas, color it with the dark Cajun craze, and in other areas, do the light Cajun craze, and it'll give you a different effect. Just play with the Stampin' Blends. They're so much fun. So maybe I will. I'm just right now coloring in the black lines from the image in the dark. And I'll also do the cap. And I'll do the handle. And then I'll do the rest in light and see how that looks. I want a couple of things darker, so I'm just going over it. There you go. All right, now let's cut them out. You gotta get your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine back out. And in this time, I'm using a magnetic platform, which Stampin' Up! Doesn't make, but Sizzix does. So you can find that online. And I just like it because it will keep the dies in place. And then I'm still using these plates came with the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and I'm using them. They're number 3. And you need one on the bottom, and then you put your image. So, and now the dies. So see, that looks pretty good. But just in case you want to be more precise, you can take washi tape, or what I have here is painter's tape. And I'm just going to put it on the die so it stays there, just to ensure that it does. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next glass. Sometimes they'll want to shift or move, or even with the magnetic plate. In one of my other videos I mentioned, when I had my dies, I mentioned using Post-it notes. You could, the sticky part of the Post-it note, you could do that too if you've got a Post-it note laying around. See how it's doing that? Too kind. Peace of mind. It's a sweater. Okay, now put the top over it and run it through. There you go. Now it's time to assemble the card. First thing I'm going to do is take our gate card and I'm going to adhere them to the card, the base. Okay, a couple of things that I already did was I cut the background Cajun Craze cardstock using the rectangle stitch dies. I cut these out already. These are the background for the beer and the sentiment. So I'll put that on real quick. Actually, I'm going to dimensional it because I love dimensionals. And then this background, I'm going to put the beer on. But I also, something that I already did before this was I cut out, and this also comes with the dies. This is hops with some leaves. So I'm going to also add that to my growler. And I've shown this technique before using our adhesive. I wouldn't call it a technique, just a way to adhere smaller images. And this is using our adhesive strips. And then in one of the times I made this card, I was able to put all 3 leaves on, and one time I didn't. So I was pretty excited. When I demoed this past weekend, my friend Shella, she actually used this as a little embellishment, and that's what I'm going to do to this card. Thanks, Shella. Okay, so now I'm going to put all of these onto the base, and I'm using dimensionals. Shocker. I love dimensionals. So in one of my examples of this card, I used a base, and this other one, I didn't. And I like this, but I didn't like that you could see that this bled. And I also, that the blends bled through. And I also didn't like that at times this little, the tulip beer wouldn't stay on. So, but I do like that look. So try it, experiment, play around, take this card, do other things with it, leave me a comment, tell me what you do differently. I'd love to hear feedback. I was enchanted to meet you. Now when you adhere them, don't go past halfway so that it doesn't get stuck to the side of the card. That gate, that side. So using dimensionals again. Please don't, waiting on you forever. enchanted to meet you. Okay. I also added some rustic metallic adhesive backed dots. Using my tweezers, I put them on. In one of my examples, I put 3 just around. Another example, I put 3 at the bottom. Let's see what I do for this one. I think I'm going to put 3 around, but I'm going to use the smaller ones this time. I'm not sure. I'm thinking now. I liked the leaf, but I think with the other bling might be a little bit much. So I don't know. You decide. Make your card however you would like. Play around. Have fun. And whoever gets this is going to love it. So now, as always, please go send this awesome beer card to somebody, wishing them a happy, happy birthday. Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button below or leave me a comment. And if you haven't already, please subscribe so you don't miss out on any projects. Now, go, go, go. Go send this card to somebody. Go send some happy.